everyone, and welcome to the third episode of From the Ashes podcast. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and if you've listened to the first two episodes, thank you for that as well. If you haven't, I retract those thanks. Go and listen to them first. But thank you for being here with me today. I have got an absolutely huge guest for the podcast today in so many ways. He is the titan of the territories. He is the man with the plan and the golden tan, sometimes a little bit orange and patchy. He is a man that I've known for 20 years and one of my closest friends in and out of the wrestling business, Sunset Skip. Before we get to the interview, I wanted to talk about a couple of things today. Most of all, the news that came out just this last weekend of the unfortunate passing of a friend of mine, Frank Reimer. Now, myself and Skip, we talk about Frank in depth and at length during our interview. His impact on the wrestling business, his impact on us and everything he did for the much wider UK scene and so many people. But I want to just speak very quickly about how Frank helped me on a personal level. When myself and Phil moved on from the FWA and we ended up at Dropkicks, Frank took a lot of time with us to really kind of help us grow and harness us, help us develop as performers. And he had a lot of faith in us at a time when I didn't have much in myself. Frank really kind of took us under his wing and helped us out on so many levels, just understanding what we were doing, giving us some faith and some belief in us. And it's thanks to Frank that I had 2 years of training in the United States at Dave Taylor's Blue Bloods Academy, training with Dave Taylor, William Regal, Chris Benoit, Daniel Bryan, and then from that, the WWE Tryouts. That was all thanks to Frank. He facilitated that with Dave Taylor and with Fit Finlay, and he got us into a WWE tryout, which at that time didn't happen. So I'm immensely thankful and grateful to Frank for everything that he did for me. I honestly think that he had probably more impact on me and my career, just in terms of his faith in me and the opportunities he gave to me, than anybody else. So it's a hard thing to deal with, and I'm going to miss Frank terribly. We used to catch up quite regularly and complain about the wrestling business and things. Frank was just always positive, and he always wanted to help everybody. I'm very grateful that he's been in my life and for everything he did for me, and he's going to be greatly missed. So this one's for you, Frank. Thank you for everything. You'll never ever be forgotten. Okay, it's time for today's interview. I sat down with Sunset Skip for the best part of 2 hours, and I've not had so much fun in such a long time. We laughed, we told old stories, we went over things that we'd both forgotten about. It was just a real fun interview with somebody that I've known for 20 years of my life. We recounted a lot of stories of the old days of wrestling, how it used to be, of the real peak periods, some of the terrible things that we had to go through, and it was just two good friends having a laugh, having a discussion, and some unbelievable stories that I think if you were to tell people that weren't involved in wrestling, they wouldn't believe they were possible. So get yourself comfy, sit back and enjoy the interview, and give me a like and a subscribe, please, for the podcast, and I'll see you at the end. Well, here it is. This is podcast number 3, and it may in many ways be the biggest podcast of all time, because my guest today is the first man to gorilla press Andre the Giant. He is the man who invented the headlock. He is the man who, when it was back in the day of the Colosseum and the Christians and the Lions, neither wanted to face him. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest of this podcast, he is the man known as Sunset Skip.
Good morning, good afternoon. I have no idea what time it is. It might be dark outside. I haven't opened the curtains, but I'm very, very excited to be here, Ash. Thank you for having me, brother man.
I don't think any of us kind of know either what time of day or what a day is anymore now. No. Like I was saying to you before this, it's some kind of weird dystopia that time doesn't have a meaning anymore.
It's sweatpants. That's the definition of day.
That's going to become currency in the future. You do realise it. We're going to trade and barter with sweatpants material.
I thought from Fallout it would be bottle caps, but no, it's going to be sweatpants. You know, I was saying to someone just a few days ago, I actually have like different quality of sweatpants during the week. So I've got like my good sweatpants, which I tend to wear on a Monday and a Friday because, you know, feel good on a Monday. And then during the week, it gets progressively less smart fitted, whatever. And then back to the weekend, I kind of force myself into adult trousers because I need to wear something that isn't polyester.
I've actually got to the point now where I have going out sweatpants and staying in sweatpants.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have a separation between them.
I stopped caring about looking like a tramp going out in sweatpants. I've still got tassels on because, you know, you got to brother it up, brother. So I've got tassels, neon tassels on all of my sweatpants. So, but it's just comfort over style these days.
Hey, we've got to get what we can get. So Absolutely. Look, we've got a lot to talk about. We've known each other for over 20 years now.
It's got to be close.
Got to be. We've got a lot to talk about. But one thing I always try and do is make sure that we're as close on the pulse with things as possible with any discussions that come up. And yesterday, I kind of woke up to a bit of a shocking news in a way.
Yeah.
The passing of Frank Reimer. So for the listeners that may not be completely aware of Frank was an ex-World of Sport star. He came up in the golden years when World of Sport was the biggest thing on TV and it was out during the FA Cup final. He rubbed shoulders with all the names in the old World of Sport days and it knew everybody. Stevie Gray, Johnny Saint, Rollerball Rocco, all of the guys. And Frank, after retirement, started up a school called Dropkicks in Purfleet in Kent. And I can't overstate this enough. Dropkicks, I believe, and I was thinking about this yesterday, is the most influential school the UK has ever had. Because, and you can add to this with me, mate, the people that came from there and went on, and some are still going as well. We're looking at Shah Samuels, who's just signed up to NXT.
Yeah.
Paul Robinson, one of the biggest stars on the UK circuit right now. Terry Frazier, who was one half of the Cartel.
Oh, Terry would have been huge if he'd still stuck with it.
I said while he was still going, I honestly believed he was the best all-round performer in the UK.
Yeah.
Without question. My former tag partner, Chris Linnell, and above all of the others, yourself.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say a but it's, you know, it is a hell of a luminary list that came through. And even guys who were kind of more FWA mainstays and then kind of passed through, guys like who are still going strong now, like RJ Singh, Sticks.
Yep.
It's a veritable who's who of certainly British wrestling of the early 2000s, and then like the legacy it's had because Dropkicks is still going strong. I was talking to Jordan Said over Twitter yesterday, and you know he said that the amount of people that have passed through Dropkicks is unreal. So like the legacy Dropkicks has had, like 20 years later, it's still going strong. 20 years later, there's still wrestlers from there who are still going strong. So it is a indelible print that Frank Reimer and Tony Scarlo had from setting up Dropkicks even today.
I think that the first 4 or 5 years of IPW UK, at least the two upper thirds of that roster was Dropkicks alumni.
I would say so. I mean, certainly from, you know, like I said, that early mid 2000s, I would say that in the South, virtually, I'd say, probably close to a good 50% of the roster would be some sort of Dropkicks alumni or FWA Academy, you know, from kind of the early mid 2000s standpoint. And then that kind of bloomed into all sorts of things. I mean, that's, you know, having been from Dropkicks myself, you and Cruz, we set up the UBW school in it was before it predated UBW when myself and Cruz did it in 2011. So the amount of, you know, we had training schools in Hertfordshire before that as well. So it all kind of, from that catalyst, that nucleus of Dropkicks, it all kind of built a bit to many other things. It blossomed and branched off in so many other ways. And
Frank facilitated so many opportunities for people. Like he got so many of us involved in the camps. Another guy that just came to mind, Greg Burridge.
Oh, absolutely.
He got Greg onto All-Star, and back in those days, you couldn't get. All-Star was like the Freemasons. You couldn't get in unless you were very good friends with somebody in it, and you could bring something to it. He got all of us involved in the camps.
Yep.
He got all of us hooked up with John Coppin and give me some more names.
There was Steve Minnelli, where
Steve
kind
Minnelli.
of people went from there as well. And it was just Frank and Tony really kind of had so many of these links, and it was a case of, okay, you can do that. I mean, I personally felt that when I made my debut, it was far too soon, but I was told, yeah, go on, you're a big lad. And I think it was probably a lack of confidence from myself, which kind of meant that I kind of didn't do as well as I thought as I should have. But having that opportunity from Frank was something where you just think, wow, I would have never have had that, because of Frank Reimer. The amount of people who were like, no, I was a professional wrestler is, his, as I said, his kind of indelible stamp will always kind of be there. So it's, he has had a huge impact on British wrestling over, a 20-year period after his in-ring career.
Yeah, enormous footprint, and I think he empowered so many people as well.
Definitely,
with his belief in it and
passion.
His passion. Exactly, he lived and breathed it. Running the British Wrestlers Reunion and taking that from being a couple of dozen stragglers to being several hundred people every year at the Wrestlers' Arms. Frank was the power behind that entire event, and his legacy, I think, needs to be sung about so much more of what he did.
Absolutely.
If nothing else, he provided us a tuck shop on a Sunday to go and just keep being true athletes and buying chomp bars in between sessions.
Frank,
well,
they were long sessions. We were there like 8 hours a day on a Sunday.
It was a full day, man. It was a full day on a Sunday. It was great. But Frank's work and Frank's effort, I think, made so many of us. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that, because I don't think I could talk about Frank with anybody else as much as with you.
No, I mean, we could have a whole podcast all about Frank and dropkicks, and though was such a character, and again, like you said, such an influential figure.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned that and kind of pay a bit of respects to Frank, and I'm forever indebted to him myself.
Absolutely,
many of us. Okay, moving on to the enigma that is Sunset Skip.
Yes, indeed.
The famous one. He's a little bit rich. He's a little bit famous. So what we infamous, yeah. You've seen Three Amigos, right? He's infamous. He's more than famous. So we met. What was it? 2002?
Yes.
2001? Actually, no. I think it was 2001, because I remember you being at the Walthamstow events, looking a bit like Beaker from the Muppet Show. I think that was 2001, maybe.
Skip. I want to say somewhere between late 2001, early mid 2002.
Yeah. So it's been best part of 20 years since we first met one another.
No, it hasn't. I saw something the other day, actually, which has kind of messed with my perception of time. It was like, when you think of 26 years ago, there's no way you think it's 1995. To me, 26 years ago was probably at some point in the 1970s.
Yeah, so late 70s.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe anything other than that. Yeah.
Like 1995 was not 26 years ago. I refuse to believe that, somebody born in 1995 is like a full-grown adult.
No. 1995 was 15 years ago.
If that.
I refuse to believe anything else.
That. In my head, I think it's still somewhere around 2006.
Terrifying. So anyway, take me through what started. So as I mentioned to Bobby Tyler, and as I kind of covered over with Crowley as well, and I say this to everybody, there's a big step and a big difference between being a fan of this and going, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And then there's an even bigger step in going, oh, that hurts, I'm going to stay doing this. Take me through young me, manager of myself.
Young me, a golf course in Dubai.
Oh, Sebastian will enjoy this. Take me through the early days. So before you came to training, kind of a little bit of your youth, how you became a wrestling fan, and what made you sit there one day and have that light bulb go off in your head. I say light bulb, it's more like a small match.
Well, I don't know. With the size of my head, it's probably more like a vast street light.
It's not like the thing they use to summon Batman.
They're huge.
No, it's more like the bat signal. You know, like the kind of wattage behind that. But what kind of drove you to get involved in wrestling as well? But kind of take us through leading up to that. Like, how did you find wrestling as an entertainment medium?
Well, I
first think I'm going to do this.
I first remember watching wrestling when I was 7. That was a good noise. I won't do that again. When I was about, I want to say 7, 8, 9. I mean, it was that long ago where it was kind of all a bit of a blur. But I was visiting my grandparents. It was like yesterday was a blur. But yeah, I was visiting my grandparents, and my granddad had it on, and I remember watching it, and I seem to have it kind of semi-vividly in my head that it was what I now would know as a jobber match with Hercules, and just pounding some no mark, and I was just impressed by this massive dude just doing stuff. And then I think from then on in, I was like, wrestling is awesome. What is this stuff? I need to watch it as much as I can. And of course, I grew up in the era of Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, Big Boss Man, and that was just stuff which just was amazing. And then so I was a fan from kind of then on in. And then what got me absolutely hooked, and to this day I'm still a fan of both of these guys. Like, one had kind of throughout various periods like a lot of influence on my career, and the other one's just an exalted legend. I was at a friend's house, and there was a WCW event on, and there was Brian Pillman versus Jushin Liger, and I'd seen wrestling before for like a couple of years, but seeing that, just this state-of-the-art cruiserweight style, just blew my mind. And also looking at Liger, like, what is this dude dressed as? Like, he's come straight out of some sort of comic book. It's
superhero.
Yeah. And it was that just kind of made me go, wow, this has gone from like awesome to the greatest thing ever. And then like, what kind of shifted me to being a wrestling fan? Like, as a kid growing up, I did martial arts on and off for forever. I did judo, I did taekwondo, I did a little bit of karate. I dabbled with that still into my 20s, and then kind of the real world caught up with me. And I played rugby as a kid as well. So I've always been quite a physical person, so who's not been afraid of kind of getting a bit of a whack. So I thought, I'll give this a go. And I remember like the first, like everyone, the first bump I hit, I was like, okay, wow, that's
it's okay. I didn't need those lungs.
Yeah, but I'm stupid enough to go, all right, let's do it again. A stupid passion, kind of whatever the right describing word would be there. I thought, right, let's do this. Let's go again and again and again and again and again, and stuck with it for near 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that. 91, being a fan of what you see, which at that point was just kind of a lot, the primarily big lads lumping and kicking one another, and all of a sudden you see this genre-defining, groundbreaking, just foundation-laying match in Liger and Pillman, which I showed that to,
that's how good it is now.
Exactly that. I was going to say, I showed it to somebody recently he said, what's all this fuss about Pillman and Liger? People talk about it. Is it honestly as good as that? I sent him a link. I went, just sit and watch.
That's
20 minutes later, I get a match. Yeah, I was going to say 20 minutes later, and I get a message back going, oh my. Yeah. And yeah, it does stand up today.
Like, good. No, good's probably not a strong enough describing word, but outstanding is going to be outstanding regardless. Like, there's a reason why, even as Liger was pushing 50 plus years old, he was still amazing. It's not even just the in-ring standard. There's just, I mean, the in-ring standard with him didn't drop, which is just mind-blowing, but kind of a top level performer, athlete, whatever, never goes below. Like, this is going to sound quite kind of a strange analogy. One of my musical guilty pleasures is Lionel Richie, and I've wanted to see him forever. And I saw him a few years back, and the man's been doing the same act for 30 years. But those 30 years, it is the most slick, smooth act you will ever see. And that's what it became like with someone like Liger. Like, he perfected the act 30 years ago. So why kind of go away from what is an amazing act? Of course, Lionel Richie and Jushin Liger kind of dropped in new stuff here and there, but the act was so good, the new stuff fits seamlessly in there because they knew where to put the new stuff in, where to kind of, remove what could be a padding in the gimmick, and kind of know that, okay, the greatest hits are here. This is the stuff that I want to get over now as well. And it's a great performer will remain a great performer, and it will be timeless. Like, we, again, kind of with a musical analogy, and this is probably a little less tenuous, stuff like Michael Jackson is always going to sound contemporary. It's always going to sound good, even 34 years after it was released now.
So I was just making a note that I'm going to be on Photoshop after this, making Houston Thunder Lionel.
Brilliant.
But it's absolutely right.
Lionel Thunder Richie.
Well,
and that's got to be a first. Like
I was one or the other.
Like Sunset Skips had a career of first, right? I am and I want this on my first show back. Let it be said, I'm going to write this down as well. I want to be. He compared Lionel Richie and Jushin Liger's careers.
I think that's fair. I think that's. I think we actually get a T-shirt made with one on the front and the other on the back.
I'd wear that all
just
day.
A little tagline saying, and just kind of. I don't know. Actually, you want to get a T-shirt with one on the front, one on the back that's reversible.
Yes.
So people don't. You kind of come into a match wearing one side, you switch it around, and you leave wearing the other side, and people go, "Which? Hold on a second." And the idea is, they're the same person.
That's it. I want it to be said. I mean, there was the fabulous photo I think Beyond Gorilla did, which showed the back of Liger's head after his last UK performance. Hell of a photo. But I'm kind of disappointed that was released, because if that wasn't released, we could say that it was Lionel Richie under the mask for years.
Well, all we got to do is start a rumor that Lionel Richie's hair is actually a wig, and then it'll add more credence to it. Oh, let's not go there. Okay, yeah. So I mean, obviously, having a good physical and sports background is a massive help, as we know from the years that we've been teaching. If you can come into this having some kind of background to it, that helps.
Absolutely.
But of course, the performance side is so much harder, and it's the one thing that people struggle with so much more. Now, one thing that nobody that knows you would ever describe you of is quiet or shrinking violet or anything. Did you find the performance element easy to switch to, considering that you are a very larger-than-life, colourful, confident person? Did you find that was something that you picked up very easily and organically, or did you struggle with it at first?
It was something where it kind of got I got told to do it. You know what I mean? And if I'm very I think when I'm told to do something, I do it. It was when I started on the holiday camps. It was Blondie Barrett who said, "You got to show out more. You got to do this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I just kind of did it from there. But I don't know if it was like when I first started wrestling, I was also a bartender as well. And that's not a job, especially in the bar I worked at, where if you were kind of, like you said, a shrinking violet, you would get eaten alive. And I think wrestling was
just drowning the sharks.
That's it. And I think wrestling's very much been that as well, especially, the early 2000s Badlands of British wrestling. You had to be kind of, it was a weird kind of balance of knowing that, okay, I'm a young lad in my late teens, early 20s, but also I'm swimming with sharks here. I've got to kind of stand my ground, so to speak, and make enough noise, but also know my place. You know what I mean? There's bigger fish in this tank that I don't want to kind of piss off, but these bigger fish, I also need to kind of make enough noise to scare them away. So it's, and also kind of the performance aspect of it. Like even now, like I love wrestling. I have done for 30 odd years now, but as good as like the wrestlers are to me, the performers are what have stayed. Like they've made that mark on me. If I think of professional wrestling, like immediately an image flashes up into my head of Undertaker, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, just these larger than life characters. So to me, pro wrestling is larger than life characters, whereas others, pro wrestling is the likes of Okada, Dean Malenko, whoever it may be. And that's kind of my view on it. Like pro wrestling is larger than life characters first and foremost, and it's the athletic kind of side, not secondary, but it's within that packaging of larger than life.
Yeah, and I think it depends a lot on the audience. If you've got wrestling's very niche now, but the niche audience that prop it up now, they worry more about the quote unquote work rate, whereas back in the Attitude Era, the average person on the street didn't care how many moves Dean Malenko knew, how good he was. They cared about, oh my God, it's a stunner.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying either one's right or wrong, but
it's context, I'd say.
It's context, absolutely. And I think I was saying this to Hustle Malone yesterday. And by the way, little plug for Hustle Malone. Check out Hustle Malone's podcast, Show Day.
Excellent. I've been a two-time guest.
Two-time.
Fantastic
podcast. Hustle's fantastic. He's got so much charisma.
The Progress commentary gig with him and Crowley is going to be.
It's going to be must listen stuff. Even if even if they're prepping for the matches, just not talking about what they've been eating for breakfast, it's going to be good.
Cheese on toast.
But you check out his podcast.
Yeah, Huss is an
fantastic.
Awesome guy.
But yeah, going back to what we were saying, the character side, it's the one thing that most people struggle to get the most. But it's what you remember as a fan, and
that's it. Like I've always said, like when you watch a wrestling show, especially, I'll be honest, like the shows like UBW and what I've kind of made my career in inverted commas, it's always been shows where I think, okay, this audience probably don't know who this wrestler is because they've seen the poster wrestling and the kids have gone, Mum, Dad, can we go see wrestling? And go, yeah. So when you're out there, you've got to do something, wear something, say something, do something which makes them stand out. And, you know, if you are somebody who's an incredible athlete, that'll make you stand out. However, I'm not like, I'd like to say I'm a pretty decent athlete, but I'm not a Matt Sydal, John Morrison level athlete who's just this incredible like superhero who can do anything physically. So I needed to be larger than life to stand out. And that's where kind of, you know, I come through the curtain, you know, full of fire. And then people go, oh, there's a big guy there making a lot of noise. I'll pay attention to him. And, I like him. And that's pretty much what I've attempted to do throughout wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to the kids at shows, mainly because I'm trying to persuade them to get their mum to spend £3 on an in-ring photo. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I talk to the kids and, you know, what wrestlers do you like? And who's your favourite wrestler in the world? And who do you like here? And it's Roman Reigns, John Cena. They never say Finn Balor. They might say The Demon. They might say Bray Wyatt. They won't say, they say The Fiend, not Bray Wyatt. It's the characters. And we have, as an audience, for the most part, family audiences.
Yeah, very casual audiences. Like,
and the kids like the characters, and the parents they dragged along, but they want something that they can best survive the couple of hours they're there. And if they're not wrestling fans, they don't care. But if there's some, like Clarence is a great example. They connect with Clarence because you look at Clarence, they go, that guy, he's funny, he's colourful. They click with you because they're like, wow, that guy, look at the color, look at the size, he's just interacting with the fans, and that's what they click with. And
I remember probably the grandest example of that. I went to a WWE show 2008 sort of time, and that was a hilarious journey trying to get up there as well. But I went, we got free tickets that day. It was myself and a mate, and we got there, and half the audience was kids and disinterested parents, and then there was, you know, a bunch of nerds like us. And I had the excuse I wasn't a nerd. I'm a wrestler. I'm cool. But
you keep telling yourself that.
I've been trying for so long, and I nearly believe it. But when throughout the show, like there's a lot of the parents couldn't care less. Like they were watching it, and it was like, I don't care. And it was a hell of a roster. If you look back, like 2008, there was a very young Drew McIntyre. Finley was on there. So for like wrestling fans, you're like, wow, this is a cool roster. I think Regal and Taylor were even on the show as well, and it was stacked. And then when Teddy Long came out and said, I think Jamie Noble was doing a promo, and Teddy Long came out and went, player going one-on-one with the Undertaker. Everyone in the building stood up. Like the Undertaker is the epitome of a character wrestler, quote unquote. Like it seems like a box to put someone in, but the Undertaker is the ultimate character in pro wrestling. There will probably not be a stronger, more long-lasting, more impact-making character, because and that really resonated with me that day, that even all the disinterested parents who were kind of half looking at their phone, kind of scratching their heads all throughout it, going, oh, this is rubbish. The Undertaker comes out and just has this unbelievable presence, and that is pro wrestling. It's not just, you know, going hold for hold, move for move. It's just this presence and just this kind of like star factor, which you know you can't teach, you can't make, you can't kind of point someone to. It's just this perfect form that comes organically, like, and that really kind of blew my mind that day.
And I think that's the difference between somebody being a footnote in wrestling history and being a headline in wrestling history. I always say anyone can make history, but only a few people can make memories.
Yeah.
That's the really important factor for me. And anyone can have a list of things that they've done and achievements, but having a legacy is a very different thing.
Absolutely.
And you have to have more than just skill at your technique.
Yes.
To be that extra level, to be that legendary status.
That's it. It's you've got to have like such a great mixture of different attributes in wrestling. And wrestling, you know, I can't remember who did it, but there's the whole thing, wrestling isn't wrestling, a few years back. There's that whole series, and it's fascinating when you actually break down like what wrestling is, and you know,
stunt grannies.
Yeah, stunt grannies. I mean, look at Crowley, for example. His kind of acting background and his kind of understanding of things is what's set him apart. And I'm sure he won't mind me saying he's not the quote unquote best technical wrestler. He's worked his ass off to get better as a wrestler. However, his presence, presentation, and performance is what's made everyone go, holy shit, this guy's a little bit special. It's not his, like, he's a hell of a wrestler. Like the match I had with him was probably the most enjoyable match I've had in a long time. Him and CJ Carter are probably the two opponents that I've had matches with in recent years that I thought, man, that was good. I was feeling that. I was in that. And as I was saying, Crowley's not a terrible wrestler, but he's an incredible presentation of his character. And the fact that he's working his socks off to get better in ring, he's going to go to the moon.
Well, I was saying this too, Crowley, and I think to a degree to Bobby as well. I'm of the mindset of put people out there as soon as you can, if they've got that intangible it factor, and they'll learn the job on the job, because you can learn the techniques, you can learn the crispness, you can learn the execution of wrestling as you go along. It's repetition. You learn the mechanics of it, but you cannot learn the character and the entertainment side. If you've got that naturally, you will quickly, you will evolve and you will grow and improve better learning the job of the physical side while you're performing than learning the performance while you're doing the physical side. It's just tried and tested. And I've done that with a lot of people, and with Crowley as well. You know, it took him, well, I mean, how long was it? Less than 6 months, and we had him on shows? Because he just had that something. But I, as I said to Crowley as well, I always take the Paul Heyman approach of hide people's weaknesses and exploit their strengths. If somebody's a great performer and a great personality, get them out there, but get them in matches and get them in situations where they can show that, and you're not going to have to say, I go do 25 minutes of the best back and forth Dean Malenko, Jerry Lynn performance you can imagine, because it's not going to work. And at the same time, if there's someone who's a great technician, don't put them in there with someone who's got so much character that's going to swallow them up, or someone that's going to, on the flip side, have no character and going to rely upon them. An example, and I'm saying this guy's now, I'm not burying him by saying this by no means.
People. Do we get try to get to bury people?
You don't bury them.
I have got a laundry list of people where I just like drop C-bombs. Like,
we're gonna avoid that.
Oh, damn it!
But Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr. in his earliest days. Now, Zack Sabre Jr. unbelievable talent, and in his earliest days, still mechanically, physically, technically, incredible.
Outstanding, yeah.
Didn't have a ton of presence. And I was working him for a show, and I was doing very much kind of campsite. Come on, kid, shall I? Do you want to see me punch him in the face? Do you want to see me hit him in the arse? Because I was working villain that day. But he wasn't giving it back.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know that. He hadn't been taught that. So I was doing pretty much his stuff for him. So I would be doing stuff like, this guy's never going to get up.
Yeah.
Don't you cheer for him? All that kind of stuff. And I'm like, geez, bro, come on, come back.
You do that, because I've had that so many times as well.
But that's not to knock Zach. No. But that's not to knock Zach. His talent speaks for itself. But this is the thing. If I hadn't had that presence to be that larger than life, we both would have died on the spot. But by no means am I comparing myself to Zack Sabre Jr. here. He's one of, if not the biggest exports outside of the UK.
Technician.
And he's, like I say, his legacy speaks for itself. He is, without shadow of a doubt, the most talented technical wrestler in the world. But obviously there was a time where he didn't. I mean, he's got tons of charisma now. He didn't have it
about
then.
Finding your feet, finding what you're doing, and that Japanese style of the interview and things, where he's got that chance to kind of like his post-match interviews, which I love. Like I love anything as big a character as Skip is, as you know, larger than life as brother, as neon and tassels and Colombian marching powder Sunset Skip is. I love a sports presentation with wrestling.
Hold on one sec. Redacted. Carry on.
Sorry, I thought it was subtle enough, but
as subtle as a bomb in the face.
Carry on. That's subtle. Sorry, I just kind of
chew on this hand grenade. Go on, carry on.
Did you? Sorry, that's a memory that you might remember.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like I love that real sports presentation because wrestling at its core, we are still trying to present it as a sport. So I love the idea of a post-match interview. Like back in the day when they'd have like you'd be interviewing somebody getting out of the ring. We did that briefly in UBW, but it's one of those things that just having someone available to do it.
None of us had the cardio to do it was the problem.
No, that's it. I think I did it once, and I think you asked me a question, and I just looked at you and went, I'm gonna punch him, and then just walked off because I think I'd done like 25 minutes with somebody that was a bit of a shift. So
I'm a big believer that you've got to have the tank for that because I've seen it before where people do these post-match interviews. And you know we have a small venue.
Yeah.
We can't afford to suffocate everyone by sucking the air out of the building because somebody else's can't breathe.
And in some of the matches, I know I won't finish that sentence. That's very catty.
Yeah, let's leave that one alone. So anyway, moving on. Okay, so we've covered the early days.
Yeah.
Now, when you first went along, Dropkicks was your first wrestling school, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
although I do think I popped into the FWA one once or twice because yourself and RJ Singh and Kid Regis all seem to remember me being there, but it may have been once or twice. But yeah, by and large, Dropkicks was the first home.
CTE gives you false memories, so don't worry too much about that.
Don't.
But yeah, I mean, when we, and I say we, me and Phil, when we first got to Dropkicks because we'd moved on from the FWA, I remember walking in and this young, bright-eyed, tall, beaker-looking son of a bitch standing there looking around going, oh, it's Paul Phil from the FWA.
Yeah.
And we clicked with you very, very early on because, one, we could see the drive and determination in you. We could see that you had all this fire, all this excitement. And three, you were up for taking our moves. So we loved you.
I took everything back in the day.
I've had this idea of something we saw on ECW. Want to try it? Who can we do? I'll do it. Come on in, Rich.
But the best thing is, like, it's not like you get some trainees today, and there's always going to be your human tackling dummy. And
can I borrow you for a second, Nick?
Yeah, come in, Nick. But
shout out to Nick.
Yeah, big shout out to Nick's awesome. Like I am desperate to wrestle Nick. Like he's going back to what we were saying about personality coming out. Like Nick's always been mechanically very good because I think he's a bit like me. He's a bit of a wrestling encyclopedia where he just knows so much because he's passionate about it. And now as Ricky Calvé, he's really starting to kind of fall into that gimmick and get confidence with it.
You talk about like finding your slot, finding your niche, finding yourself.
And it's not what you would have thought he is, like compared to his real life persona. Like, you know, the old cliche in wrestling has been yourself turned up to 11. That is not him at all. Like, you would have thought this would be the ultimate nightmare for him going, hey, really nice, calm, quiet guy, have a really outlandish character. You would have thought that would be hell on earth for him.
That's why I don't subscribe to the yourself up to 11. I subscribe and do the opposite because it forces you out of your comfort zone.
Some people kind of, it's a sink or swim for sure. And he's you know, swam like Michael Phelps in it.
Yeah, so for a second, you mentioned Michael Phelps, and my mind went to Oscar Pistorius, and I was like, let's not mention that one.
No,
let's not go there.
No.
So, rapidly moving on.
Yes, where were we?
Yeah.
Can I borrow you?
Yeah, so can I borrow you? Yeah, you were up for taking everything. You were up for trying everything. And, you know, looking back, maybe that's some of the answers as to why it's caused some of the damage to your psyche, or those head drops. But nonetheless,
and why I've got a 20-inch neck.
It's just calloused over years. But yeah, you were there to help, and we wanted to give that back. I wanted to help train you because you, on a physical level, you didn't have the dexterity or the grace that, say, a technical wrestler would have.
No.
I'm going to put this nicely. You didn't so much have two left feet, you had two club left feet. But
I've never been the most graceful.
No, but we both saw that and went, that doesn't matter. We can learn him around that. We can teach him around that. And we did.
Good.
We can learn him good. We can do him the learn. But you did, because you had the drive, and it was
Absolutely.
It was joyous to see you growing along with it. And of course, your first gimmick, thanks to Frank, was Rich and Famous.
Yep.
Because Frank did love a pun.
He did.
And Rich and Famous, I mean, bear in mind, you got onto the camps really early.
I did.
Some people, 10, 15 years on, still can't get onto the camps.
And I got it. It was like my second, third match in.
Yeah.
It was
and working with Blondie. It's an unbelievable opportunity.
Blondie Barrett and Johnny Kidd. Like, even then, I realized what a big deal, because I've always been like a real wrestling nerd. Like, even now, I know. If it's worth knowing, I know about it. Does that make sense? You're like
a Rain Man of wrestling. Because I'll be like, oh, do you remember that match that Mr. Perfect had with Barry Horowitz? And you'll be like, when he was wearing a yellow singlet and he only had 2 laces done up. Oh my god, it was amazing.
I noticed these weird small details, but saying that, on the flip side, I cannot remember the name of any show I've ever done. It's always like The Town and maybe I wrestled. Like, I never remember that I've wrestled at Arse Punch 2014 or I don't know.
I'm writing that down as a show name.
The cage match I had with Cruz, I did an Arse Punch, and that was Hustle Malone's favorite thing he's ever seen in wrestling. But yeah, on a side note, I hate wrestling show names as well. So that's probably why I just tune out of them. And I'm like, yeah, when I was in Sheffield, November 2009, like that's what I remember, rather than kind of Headbutterama 2014.
Again, writing that one down.
Yeah, man, do it.
So first off, like, the physical side wasn't the thing for you initially, but the character side was, and you getting on the camps was the epitome of learning on the job.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And we all we did our stint at Drop Kicks, and then things changed there. We all moved on from there. You and I were teaching in London for a while, and I'm gonna go on to a certain memory from that in a second. And then we kind of drifted around for a few years. We were both doing our own things on different places. And then fast forward, we get to UBW. But going back to our time in London, and I was thinking about this morning, and I really wanted to bring this across. We've got so many stories from that place. So many stories, good and bad.
Yeah.
But one that sprung to mind, and I wanted to mention this story because I wanted to pay tribute to this individual. So me and Rich, while teaching there, we were very close to all the trainees because they were kind of doing their time as well there.
Yeah, it was a call of duty for sure.
It was. And one young lad, he was a fantastic young lad, had all the exuberance of a young puppy in the world. Owen Davies. Owen did his time in wrestling for a while, moved on from there, grew a massive beard, put some size on, grew about 3 feet taller, and was just this big Sons of Anarchy looking, rocking metal son of a bitch. Just amazing guy. And I kept in contact with him for years after wrestling because he's just such a good guy. Very sadly, Owen passed away a year or two ago. And he was in his early 30s. He was ill for a while, and no age at all. And he developed sepsis, and it took him very quickly. And it hit me and you very hard because it's very sobering when someone that you've almost treated like a child, like an offspring, and is also that much younger, is taken. It's very sobering.
So suddenly too.
Exactly. But Owen was just such a wonderful, always happy, always positive, full of life guy. But there was an amazing moment, and I'm gonna recount this as a tribute to him. So I'll lay the groundwork, and you tell the story.
Okay.
So we're doing training matches one day, and so we're gonna put Owen. You're gonna go in with Big Andy. Now, Big Andy was this big 360 pound ginger monolith. He went and worked for WAW, didn't he? I can't remember his name there. Judas. What's he with the facts? Big monster. Kind of like Vader.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna do a simple
I want to say it was a tag. I want to say it was Owen and Marco as a Magic Circle, and I want to say it was a guy we dubbed Bono as a.
It may have been
tag. I've got a funny feeling it was a tag.
Hey, I'm going to pass over to your Rain style level on that. That's fine.
I'll get you trying to do it.
I'll
take on.
But yeah, so this match is on, and we said, okay, well, simple psychology, just think Shawn Michaels and Vader, think Sting and Vader, just do that kind of stuff. And we're going to come down to it. Owen, you and Andy in there. And at this point, I'd suggested to Andy, because of his size, he used the old A-Train derailer, the old up over the shoulder, drop to your knees, jog their back, down they go. Fine. Boom, practiced it. It's fine. Great. Now we get to the point in the match, and take it away.
So, as people who listen to this know, if they're a wrestler or if they've trained as well, training to do a move a few times, like you can nail it 4, 5, 6 times, but at the end of like however long matches, and I don't think it was overly long, probably 10 minutes or so, we gave him a decent period of time, but wrestling's the most bizarrely knackering thing you'll ever do. So with that in mind, Big Andy hooks Owen up for the for the derailer, and could only do what could be described as, so instead of like he dropped to his knees, I think, but I think as he did, where they were both a bit blown, Owen didn't hold himself, and he didn't kind of keep himself straight.
He dropped him forward rather than to the side.
Dropped to his knees and just lawn darted Owen in the back of his head, neck, and shoulders.
He folded him up.
Like, I'm talking like completely crumpled him. I didn't realize that this is going to be a good word. It's probably the wrong one. I didn't realize there was a fulcrum in the neck for the body to bend that way. So I think he pins him. I think it was the fastest count ever. You might have even been the referee, or we were stood next to him.
No, we were standing at ringside watching on in awe.
I think we had an out-of-body experience at that point, which happens so often in that place.
It's like,
I remember,
like as a romantic thing, you kiss the back of somebody's neck.
Yes.
Yeah. Owen kissed the back of his own.
Via his anus.
Yeah. So carry on, please.
Folded. So after that, I think I kind of unfolded him out of the ring. And I think Andy, his opponent that day, and a couple of others kind of carried this poor guy, dragged him.
No, you're missing the key part.
Oh, no, I guess
you're missing the finish of the move.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go on.
So he's folded him. Owen's kind of gone like a zombie up to his knees. We've both looked over, and I've just looked at him and shook my head. I'm like, no, stop. and Owen's looked over to us, shook his head like, no, I can carry on. Owen, just stop. You've been spiked. And he said the immortal words of,
I know my body.
and what was meant to follow this was Andy's spear.
Yes.
Andy's looked at me for approval of, like, almost like in Gladiator with a thumbs down. He's looked at me and I've gone, I shook my arms and like shrunk my shoulders and gone, he says, okay. So Andy's gone, okay.
Folded him.
And then like Rhino on crack has speared him so hard. Owen has inverted on himself onto the, I didn't think it was possible to land on the crown of your head, but he did.
Hand on the his feet.
Yeah, and just went, just kind of folded. And then that was the finish. And then it goes to the next bit. Carry on.
So we drag him out of the ring, and it's just limp legs. Like, mate, are you all right?
Like a sack of spuds.
Give him the old Iggy, give him a little slap on the face, splash him some water. I'm like, right, I'll take him to the changing room and just see if I can, preserve life a little longer. And I've never seen somebody what can only be described as dry heave their organs out. And I said like that I know my body line earlier, and I want to say he did that like out back as well. I'm like, oh, are you all right, mate? Can you walk? And he's like, I know my body, and he just heaved. What I swear to God, he dry heaved for like a half a minute of just like organs trying to escape his body. The healthy parts of him are still trying to escape. The living parts are leaving the shell behind. Like, no. Oh my God.
I remember a few minutes afterwards kind of walking in to check on him, because I was thinking like, I better check him for the insurance policy. I kind of wandered into the changing room, and he was there hunched over, and people were just holding onto his back. And I'm like, Owen, it was like called run-ins. I was like, Owen, you're dead, man. And he just looked up and he was literally smiling on his face. He just went, I'm good. Okay. I've turned around. I've got half a step and I've heard, Braw! He just put a brave face on for me. Just wandered back in, and everyone was like, "Is he okay?" And I went, "I don't think okay is the right word, but we'll see how the day goes on from here." It was so funny. Honest, to this day, it's still one of the funniest things ever.
Absolutely.
And he was fine afterwards. Obviously,
Oh yeah, he was
just
heavy.
He was knocked silly.
Yeah,
but,
like I don't think he was even, like knocked silly in the, concussion center things. I just think it was a heavy old bump that the body sometimes goes, no, don't like this. What am I doing?
Oh God, it was so funny. It was so funny. But yeah, Owen, tremendous character. I miss that guy so much. But what I said to you before about leaving a legacy, moments. That was Owen's moment. It was just unbelievable. Speaking of that kind of stuff, in between that and UBW, you were teaching in Milton Keynes for a while.
I was, yeah.
A very, very quick little story, because I want these podcasts to be about more than just wrestling. What?
Blue Dragon?
We'll cover Blue Dragon. We'll cover that in a minute. No, I'm talking about the day at training with Kid Regis in your head. With that kick.
Oh man! See, I didn't even think about that story.
No. We were talking about Owen and his out-of-body experience. We've got to talk about that one.
So it was, I think, myself, Kid Regis, and Cruz. We'd been there for a while. Like we just went up on a Sunday, and like we taught whoever turned up. But most of the time, it was invaluable time for us to kind of do our own thing.
Then there was that time I turned up, took one bump and went, "What is this ring?"
That ring was murderous, and the best thing was the ring before that was somehow even worse. So several weeks later, I'll get to the main story. Several weeks later, we spent the entire day coming off the top rope. Like this ring, I've never seen anything formed like it. Like I've been in hundreds of rings over the years. This one had like 3 great big V-shaped, I don't know how to describe it, I'm not much of an engineer, V-shaped kind of struts underneath that made this thing like impenetrable to any force. Like all other rings, they've got, they kind of embrace impact. This one just goes, no.
I think it was inspired by the medieval torture devices.
It was like
an original torture rack.
We had the idea, I wonder if we could shift one of these beams. So we got 3 crash mats stacked on top of each other. And I was a lot lighter then, but even so, I was still a big dude. So the 3 of us spent the entire day coming off the top rope, trying to break this ring, and we managed it. And it went from being unbearable to like tolerable. But another time you guys came down, the story you were saying about myself and Kid Regis, we were just doing a bit in the ring, and I think I remember ducking down for something, and he came steaming in with a knee to my temple, and then there was a flash, and then I remember giggling on the floor. In the interim, I'll let you take over.
So I'm at ringside, and it was the old, I think it was the old ducker backdrop spot, maybe.
Something like that.
And he's just decided to channel Johnny Wilkinson and just punted you in the head as hard as imaginable. And what was funny was the noise, because it sounded like you ever thrown a wet towel on the ground?
That was brain hitting skull, no doubt.
It was just that kind of noise, and it was just this kind of like sound. And I looked, and I've been around long enough. Immediately, I was like, "Oh, I bet you felt that one." And you just kind of stood up and went, "Huh," and it just carried on going. And then you finished, and I say you finished. It was very shortly afterwards you fell over, and it was like, "That's enough."
Yeah.
But then you got out of the ring, and I remember saying to you, "Mate, you okay?" What? Are you okay? Yeah. Cool. Okay, right. Your eyes are rolling like a slot machine in your head. I'm going to get 3 sevens any second. No, I'm fine. I'm okay. Just a bit rocked. Okay. I don't think you should drive home. I'm fine. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm good. Yeah. Okay. You've just walked into a wall, but are you? No, I'm fine. You were just. I remember having a conversation with you about something. I can't remember what it was now. But I spoke for like 2 minutes straight at you, and you just looked at me the whole time. And as I finished, you just looked at me and went, and just started laughing at me. I went, no, mate, seriously, are you okay? And you went, giggling at me like some kind of idiot. I'm like, okay, this is a grade 1 concussion straight up.
That's it. And then I still drove home. I have no memory of driving home that day.
That's the thing, because like we couldn't do anything other than let you drive.
No,
and I remember checking with you. I was like, message me as soon as you get home. Speak to me as soon as you get home.
Gave you the mummy text.
Yeah, exactly. But you're just like, yeah, I made it home. How was the journey? I don't know.
Chaos and devastation, but I'm all right.
Just unbelievable. And I want to do a very, very quick story on this, and we're going to move on because, we've got so much to cover. But mentioning Regis.
Yeah.
Can you please quickly, for the listeners, tell the story of Regis in the boot of your car?
So we were up on the camp, so I got Regis on with me. So me, him, and another mate of ours, we were all traveling up together, and this was up in Yarmouth. And we learned that day that we couldn't leave Regis alone in the back of the car like a naughty child, because he would do something. So one week he was there going, "Oh, fixed your window, mate. It wasn't broken." Long story. That same journey, "I fixed your door, mate. It wasn't broken." But anyway, another journey, we're kind of driving along and he goes quiet in the back seat. And of course we, didn't notice because suddenly he's gone quiet. And then we turn around and he's got some tape out of someone's bag or his bag, and he's taped up his mouth. And then he's hog-tied himself, which is no mean feat.
I don't know how you did it.
Yeah, God knows, it's Regis. Like that is the definition of I love him. Like, but the amount of stories I've said, it's Regis, it's unreal. That's just his entire definition is it's Regis. So we're driving along and we stop in traffic, and it's on a busy dual carriageway, and we just kind of caught up in traffic, and we just hear this muffled scream appear from the back seat. And of course, he's hogtied, like flailing up and down. He's an athletic guy, so he could kind of get some height, flailing around. All of these people in cars are starting to turn around and look at us.
Semi-naked too.
Yes, taking his clothes off. So of course, me and my mate in the front, we're like, "Stop that!" So
just swinging punches at him.
Two people in the front trying to punch the crap out of some dude who's hogtied in the back seat of a car. How we didn't get pulled over is nothing short of just a miracle.
Just amazing. It's one of my favourite stories of Regis, and Regis was an enigma in so many ways. But
such a great dude.
But moving on rapidly.
Yeah. This podcast, we could do like 52 parts at this rate.
Oh, definitely. So we got on to 2013.
Yes.
At this
big
point,
jump forward.
Big jump forward. I'd moved to Hitchin.
Yes.
And you and a couple of other people were training. It was in Hitchin as well, wasn't it? Obviously,
yes.
Gym.
Combat Centre.
And you were running lessons there. And I must admit, at this point, for various reasons, I had really fallen out of love with wrestling, and I was pretty much determined that I was done. But you had mentioned about coming along and teaching a bit and helping out. Okay, I don't mind. I'll give it a go. And there was talk at the time of, oh yeah, there's this guy that's training with us, and he's starting up a company. Oh God, not another one of these. Because over the years we've seen so many people,
hundreds.
I'm going to start my own wrestling company. We're gonna take over the world, and it's
we're going to pay you this much, and we're going to have TV and great
pay. What's pay? Yeah, but 2 shows later on, they're done, and we've seen that so many years.
2 shows at most.
Yeah, and that's why I was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I was working a show in Hitchin and met Justin that night, and he told me his ideas, and I met Alex Knowles as well, and told me the ideas about it. And okay, well, yeah, okay, this sounds like something we could do. And that was the genesis and birth of UBW and UBW training.
Yep.
Which of course has gone on from there. But how did that come about with you? I mean, how did you get to the point of, we're going to start teaching, we're going to start running classes?
It was just kind of, I wanted to do it. I thought, okay, I'm going to preface this and say, I do not know absolutely everything about wrestling. I am not the greatest coach in the world, but I like to think I'm a pretty decent coach. And at that point, I'd done a bit of coaching, supporting you. I'd done the stuff in Milton Keynes, which was kind of more me honing my own craft independently. And I thought, you know what, I've got plenty to pass on. And if there's interest, because there are a few people who from the schools that we'd kind of taught at beforehand were messaging me going, oh, there's, if there's anything local, let me know. And I thought, you know what, let's do it. Let's give it a whirl. So I thought, okay, I've got nothing to lose. Let's open it up. And it kind of went from strength to strength. We had some really kind of good guys. I found the pictures actually of one of the early early sessions where Johnny Kidd visited, and I think that was before you joined, and we had like the guys who were on board that day. There was Ricky, who went on to be Tommy Nova, one of the early UBW champions. Hammer, who's one of the most incredibly terrifying and best people I've ever met. Sween. There was Michael Hunt, who can do tricks. And there was a couple of others as well. Like, so we had like quite a good little core group come through initially. And then, like I said, that kind of Justin came on board, and there was another guy at the time who he and Justin were bouncing the ideas off UBW together. And then I think you joined, and then Alex came on board, wanted to be a wrestler, decided no chance for that, and became an outstanding referee. And, you know, Alex is the greatest person ever. And then that kind of all launched what we now know as UBW.
Yeah. And it was funny because at the time I was just kind of getting involved to help out and thought, you know what, if I could do a couple more shows and I'll jack it in. But obviously it took off from there. And, you know, everyone needs to remember that the genesis of everything that created UBW starting off was down to you and Cruz. And it was the work that you put in at the beginning that offered the opportunity to start that off. And it's grown from there. And it's a hell of a legacy when you think about when we started off with this tiny little school, this tiny little classes, and no real structure to it. And where it's gone to from there.
Built more structure, and you know, I was talking with Nick again. Another shout out to Nick about he was saying, could he do some sessions with me when things are back to normal? Like, absolutely, man. Like Justin mentioned as well. Shout out to Justin for setting up the Square One Academy, which is where it's grown to now. So amazing work from him. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back involved with a bit of coaching, because I haven't done it since being back in the country that much, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, whereas beforehand it was pretty much without fail every Sunday, myself, you and Darren would be there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of getting back involved with that a little more.
And that's a good little segue there. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we've got to talk about it. The day that you went from being part of the infrastructure of British wrestling to be an international star.
Absolutely.
You
doubled my rate, that did.
Yeah, well, yeah, up to 15 quid.
2 hot dogs and 2 handshakes.
Moving out for a few years and going and living and working in Dubai. You upset me. You didn't end up with a part share on a golf course, but
I think if I stayed there much longer, I'd have ended up with either keys to the city, full on Worcester from a shake, or kind of being in prison.
Well, yeah, we took bets when you went away as how long it was going to be before you were locked up, and
my sister said I'd be what's called an inadmissible passenger, which is when you're on the plane and they go, no, sir, we'll hoover around you and we'll get this thing turned around.
Yeah, we all expected that. But talk us through a bit about that. I mean, obviously, it's a big culture change, enormous culture change. Everything that you know as a day-to-day basis in life is different.
Yeah.
Working week is different. Working hours, working directive is different. Where you live, how you shop, everything is different. It's a completely flipped around kind of culture there.
Absolutely.
Take us through a bit around the time you were there and some of the experiences, because you've got some stories about things that happened while you were there.
Amazing. I crammed a lifetime of experiences into the 2 and a bit years I was there. And so, yeah, I ended up going out there summer 2015, just needed a big change personally and professionally. So I head out there, and one of the funniest things, I remember talking to somebody at the job I left to head out there, the shoot job. Pew, pew, got to pay the bills, brother. And I remember saying, man, I hope I find a barber that's decent. And then fast forward, I end up shaving my head because the hair was fast becoming a myth. So I moved out there, and it was, like I said, just the huge change in culture. I loved it out there. I'll start by saying that off. Like, I want to move out there again with my family now. You know, Sunset Skip's a family man, brother. And it was just absolutely incredible. Like, the lifestyle was so good. Like, my day job, I didn't have to pay tax. I got a fully furnished apartment as part of my golden handshake deal, and it was incredible. Like, I've said to you and to all of our friends that, I mean, you're probably sick of me banging on about how good it is out there, because you just see Dubai as being this place where all of these Z-list knobs go on holiday at the minute. But to me, it was this place which just rapidly became my home. Like, the expat community is this absolutely amazing, like, open bubble where it's full of people who are like-minded. They might be different professions, but the amount of people that I met out there who you all are of a similar mindset first off the bat, because you're thinking, okay, I'm willing to up sticks and move halfway across the world to this completely different place, which, it's somewhat like a film set out there. There isn't an awful lot of history, because the Emirates became a country in the early 1970s. Before that, it was a group of independent states. It's not like it just grew out of the land in the 70s, but it's a very, very young country. And of course, there's a huge culture shock with the country being rooted in Islam, but there being such a huge community of people from all over the world. So it's just this incredible melting pot of kind of the traditional sense of things. Like I visited a lot of the mosques and a lot of the forts at Al Hosn and things like that, and it is just this incredible place. And then of course there's the wrestling side of things, where at the time it was a fledgling one single fledgling wrestling organization, which we had some really cool opportunities come up there, which I'll go into in a little bit. So just the whole kind of making waves and up in sticks and going out there, it was a huge deal.
Yeah, and like I mentioned to Bobby, it's difficult to move to somewhere with such a different culture and to live there, because we are creatures of habit, and we get used to our daily routines, and it's very hard. And shifting a culture to not only adapt to it but to survive in it, it's a big thing. I remember speaking to you one day, and you said, "Oh, I'm working today." Oh, what do you mean you're working? It's Saturday. Oh, yeah, we don't work Fridays here in Dubai because it's a religious day.
Yeah.
Day of prayer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Things like that. And just how everything, you have to be so careful of what you say and do, and everything's so different. So I think to live in that environment is incredible, to actually to do it for any period of time. And you were there for a couple of years, and I fully see you moving out there long term. I think that's where your future lies. Yeah.
If not the Middle East, certainly kind of elsewhere again, because I think once you get kind of a taste of having lived elsewhere, it's very much one of two things. You're either like, no, like you said, creature of habit, I'm going to head home, or you're like, you know what, I want to see the rest of the world. Like I've got a young son now. For listeners who don't know, if you know me personally, it's all I talk about. But I want him to see the world. I don't want his whole entire world to be where we live now, because I've got the opportunity with my day job to see the world, to show him different things. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer to go, all right, if I have the opportunity, let's move back to Dubai. Let's go to Hong Kong. Let's go to wherever, maybe for a couple of years at a time, but let's see the world. And, let's not just have your whole worldview being North London.
There's also, there's a certain attraction in not having 10 months of winter where you live.
100%. Although there was a funny story. Where I lived, it was in a big complex, and I'm sure I've told you this, but I went over to a friend's apartment, which was 5-minute walk from where I was, and I left theirs, and I was like, right, I'm going to go for a little run, because I was a bit fitter then, and we had a running track all around our compound. So I thought, okay, great, let's do a couple of laps, and then I'll go to bed. So I left theirs, and I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It was about this sort of time of year, late January, and I left theirs. I was like, oh, I feel a bit chilly. I'm going to run up and get a jumper. And I looked at the weather app on my phone, and it was 24 degrees. And I gave myself a good stern talking to, and went, no, it's 24 degrees. If this was England, you would be sweating your bits off. But it's a very, very quick how acclimatized I got to the weather.
You do though, don't you? Yeah. So Dubai,
a golf course in Dubai with young me.
It was a fantastic experience, and I think, having known you as long as I have, I think that did wonders for you on a personal level, because I think it matures you so much. It grew you as a person. I think it did the world for you. But obviously, you came back, you returned to the motherland. We've all got. Could I just
add a couple of other bits? I know it might be interesting listening. Because I don't think we've mentioned the wrestling in Dubai quite so much. Yeah. But when I edit this bit afterwards, we'll seek straight into it. So just carry on as if we just finished about the weather bit. Cool. Sorry, I missed what you said, mate.
Oh, so we'll just carry on as if you just finished the weather bit. So I'll give it a couple of seconds silence and go into it. So ready?
Cool. Yeah, like as well as like the amazing weather, like wrestling presented so many cool opportunities. I mentioned it was very much a fledgling start there. There was a company, it's now kind of morphed into a newer company called Wrestling ME, but at the time it was called Dubai Pro Wrestling. Interesting fact, you have to get government permission to name anything after one of the Emirates I learned. I don't know how true that is, but I thought that was quite a cool little thing. That's why there's now Wrestling ME, and there's this new organization that Steve Linsky's part of, I think, called UWN. But when I was out there with wrestling, like, we had so many opportunities presented to us because it's a major untapped market. Like, wrestling's not got any sort of establishment there. They're like, WWE have come a couple of times a year at most over the last 10 years, like maybe once a year, maybe less than that. Abu Dhabi, where I live, they had the first women's match with Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks not long after I left. That was just down the road from where I used to live. But while I was out there, like, we did some amazing things from Dubai Pro Wrestling. We some of the venues we performed at, one was the World Trade Center, and that's a major what would be the word, kind of hub for entertainment. I saw 30 Seconds to Mars perform there like a week after arriving, which was probably one of the reasons why I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out there. My favorite band are playing a week after. It's a good omen. So I performed there countless times. That was where, you know, those great pictures of me and kind of a big group of Filipino people, netball players, basketball players are. There's that great photo and them going, Rich, Rich, Rich. That's where that came from. And that great footage that I used for a while there, that all happened at the World Trade Center. So that was incredible. We did something called Dubai Sports World, and we were, I would say, us in the basketball were like the featured attraction for the first year. And then the second year, there was Ninja Warrior, and us were the featured attractions for people to come down. And like during that time, some of the other guys who were available during the day did some coaching. And then we had the matches in the evenings. It was quite weird because they had like a 9 p.m. start time on a Friday. So that was knackering getting time of day. Like it was about an hour and a half drive from home. So it's not the worst drive in the world. But we'd have these matches and it'd be like, oh, you're going to be on last tonight, Rich. Like, oh man, I mean, I'm on at like 1 a.m. and just like there were still people milling around. Like I think this was almost a 24-hour thing, and it's this
is the Power Uti playbook,
mate. Oh, don't. I'll get to. I've got something about that as well. Yeah, I also had like we performed at Zero Gravity, and it's quite a fun little thing. Like Zero Gravity is this infamous beach bar, and we were there, I want to say on Saturday, I'll have to check, but it was the 6th of May, regardless. And on the day before, Justin Bieber did an impromptu appearance there. Then we had our wrestling show there. And the day after, Justin Bieber performed, and the wrestling show was great fun. Like we got looked after so well. I remember like putting out on Twitter and Instagram, which I'm fairly rubbish at social media, and I wish I'd kind of put more stuff out there because I think it would have really kind of raised the presence of myself and
definitely. Yeah.
I've still got the photos. I was just, hey, photo, leave that on my phone and never do anything with it. But we got looked after so well. Like we had fruit platters and food stuff. Like just, WWE has catering. We had like VIP catering. We had like tables groaning under bottles of water and energy drinks and tables full of fruit platters and cheese platters and stuff like that.
You had fruit shoots that were actually in date.
Oh, mate, like we get excited if there's a bottle of water backstage in British wrestling that's not half drunk.
We get excited if there's a chair.
We do. Like, so I actually tweeted out a picture of me stood in front of some of the skyscrapers, and I think
Sid and Dan.
No,
sorry, carry on.
That would be another story.
Carry on.
And I put the caption, "It's no working men's club," and it was just like, kind of surreal. Where you're like, okay, wrestling's taken me from.
It's hard.
Yeah, man. Like from some kind of grotty working men's club up in Sheffield to wrestling in one of the most popular beach bars in Dubai. You're like, okay, this is pretty mad. Like, and I had a really kind of fun match. I had a whole bunch of friends come down, and I've got a hilarious story. I think it's probably a bit too not safe for the podcast, but at Zero Gravity, there's an infamous perspex sided swimming pool.
I don't like where this one's going.
It's probably going exactly where you're imagining. But as I'm in there, like one of my friends that I worked with, she thought wrestling was the most amusing, funny thing in the world. I wouldn't say she was a wrestling fan by any stretch of the imagination. She just thought it was mint. So she's there, like she's all excited, like her and her other half are there. And I roll out of the ring, and she's like, "You'll never guess what happened during your match." I'm like, "What happened?" She's like, 2 people got thrown out of the swimming pool. I was like, oh, "Okay, cool. Why?" And this is where it probably gets a little bit not safe for work. So at one point, there was a man and a woman who were pressed up right against the side of this like perspex swimming pool, and he was how can I put this? Digitally pleasuring her in a swimming pool. Now, I'm no gynecologist. However, that must have hurt like hell. Okay. And then the same swimming pool in the same 10-minute match I had, another dude just whipped his trousers, his shorts down, and got his knob out and pressed that up against there. So there's these people getting arrested while I'm having this.
Here's the thing, right? We're both men. We're both old men now. We, as men, we do strange things.
Yes,
that's a fact. Why do you think the relevant thing to do when you're in this situation and there's other people around watching is to whip your Johnson out and squish it against the side of a Perspex pool, making it look like some kind of like half done bagel, and go, hey, look at that!
God knows.
Nobody's gonna either be impressed or aroused or anything by that. Why is that the thing to do?
I don't know. My friend was like, I got pictures, but the security made me delete them. I was absolutely died. I didn't have a long match that day. It's probably about 10 minutes or so. I get out the ring and I was like, yeah, that was all right. People going into it. La, 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 la. I was hot as balls. It was 42 degrees outside, and we wrestled outside in 42-degree temperature that day. She's like, you'll never. So yeah, that was probably one of my favorite memories of a match that I wasn't involved with. And then probably the biggest memory and most treasured, I'd say, was when Canyon Seaman and WWE executives came out to have a look at us one day. They had a big it was kind of ahead of what turned out to be a massive tryout in Dubai. They had about 6 months later, and they came down and had a look at us. And I remember talking to Caleb at the time, who was the guy who ran Dubai Pro Wrestling. He was like, oh, you got to come down, man. They'll like what you do. But, trying to give me a bit of a pep talk. Because at the time, I was like, I'm 34 years old. If they want a 34-year-old white guy, they've got thousands outside the door of the performance center. They could just go, hey, you come here. So I'm probably a bit of a pessimist in that sense. I'm as enthusiastic as it can be about wrestling, but somewhere between kind of probably a bit pessimistic or a bit kind of like, no, I know my chances from being around in wrestling a bit. So we had this it was a behind closed doors tryout. So Canyon Seaman, the guy who's responsible for hiring and firing, was there. And we had a series of matches. We did different drills and things like that. They had a really cool one in DPW called Ring Warriors, which is a great wrestling conditioning circuit that I'm looking forward to bringing back. But so I had a match with somebody, and this is shows the difference of my mindset at 34 and 24. So I had this match with a guy that I'd wrestled a whole heap of times out there. I've mentioned him to you, the Pharaoh, big Egyptian bodyguard guy for the Sheikh who hit like a freight train. And I quite like that. I like the physical side of things in wrestling. So we had our match. But on this day, in this match, I think anything that could have gone wrong on his side and the referee side, and I'm not putting heat on them, did. Because I think, they were nervous. It's WWE in town coming to have a look at us. So we had this match and the stuff we had planned. And we always amassed an audience, even in our gym where people came down. So because we were right in an area where a lot of migrant workers live. So they'd walk past and they'd hear all this noise and banging and shouting and what's happening here, and pop in. So, and then all the gym goers as well were kind of watching it, because it's this really cool calisthenics gym that we were homed in for a while. So I had this match, everything that could have gone wrong. I was desperately trying to keep the wheels on it, and it didn't. And I remember just rolling out and just having this little wistful smile going, well, 10 years ago, you'd have been inconsolable. Now it was what it was. You put in a good showing, and they'd be able to see it. And I got a chance to kind of speak to Canyon Seaman only for 30 seconds, and I got some really nice, encouraging words. He said, I liked what you did. There was some good stuff there. Keep going, blah, blah, blah. And I've no doubt that it was just generic stuff. But for me to exist on WWE's radar for that evening was a huge thing. And it's something where I do kind of treasure that, because I never thought that I would probably get looked at or acknowledged, or WWE would know that I exist. So to have 30 seconds time, a minute's time chatting to the guy for hiring and firing was a real kind of nice shot in the arm. And to have, it was no doubt generic compliments thrown at me, but it was a nice thing. I did that, the big bump I take off the second rope. Yeah, that's something that he remembered. Went, that was a really good bump, man. Blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. It was
on the phone to Jay Riso at that time, going, Brother, you won't believe what I've just seen over here. Your spots, my boy.
Some dude is stealing your shit in Dubai. The infamous Christian bump.
The infamous Christian bump. But to be honest, I mean, that's a fantastic experience, and a lot of people can go to different places. I mean, I talk to Sydney von England on a daily basis about his current American adventures, and he's telling me about what he's doing out there, and he's having an amazing time.
Oh, yeah, him and Eden are going to kill it out there.
Well, they're having so much opportunity already, and they're getting their names across. It's fantastic. But a lot of people can go wrestle different places, and you get matches. You don't really get opportunities to work with the senior, most prevalent talent relations involving guy in the company, and even have an interaction with somebody of that volume of his importance. That's incredible. I remember you messaging me going, well, guess what just happened to me? And I'm like, mate, that's enormous. And this even if it doesn't go anywhere, that's enormous. You've interacted with the guy who's the hirer and firer of the WWE.
Like I said, I existed on a level in, to WWE for that period of time. And I don't think I told many people about it because I was kind of umming and ahhing about going. And I remember turning up and I was in my work attire, and I like to dress quite smartly for work. So I turned up for this tryout in kind of a waistcoat, shirt and tie. And everyone's like, you made the effort. I was like, hey man, I come straight from work. Like I literally left work, got a lift home, grabbed my bag and just went up. So it was, not quite because I was umming and ahhing about it for a good couple of weeks. I was like, because the reason why I was umming and ahhing, it wasn't a case of, oh, they're not going to sign me, I'm not going to bother. It was more, I don't want to get in someone else's way. If they're like, they've come to the Middle East, it's a casting. You know what I mean? If you're in the Middle East, you're looking for someone from the Middle East or somebody from that subcontinent. You aren't, as I said earlier, you're not looking for a guy in his 30s, a white guy in his 30s, because you open up the door to the performance center and shout, I need a bald 30-year-old. How many are going to come running? So it was more me kind of thinking, I don't want to get in anyone's way, but I kind of had the thought, and I spoke with Caleb, who was running it. He's like, no, man, calm down. Like I've always been kind of like a bit kind of, what's the word, kind of down on my abilities, where I think, I'm not amazing, so I don't want to kind of get in the way. But he's like, no, dude, you are a damn good performer. They'll have something that they will be able to give you something decent on what you've done, And I was like, yeah, you're right. I should go. It's a hell of an opportunity. So I did, and it was wonderful. So it's something that was a real shot in the arm for my career, and it gave me a bit of a confidence boost at that time as well, because I was probably kind of thinking, much like you in 2013, thinking, I'm probably on the downslide. I'm getting a bit older. I'm a few miles on the tank, so it's probably time to let somebody else was my thinking.
I think it was the rebirth for you in a lot of ways, because I remember from that point onwards, you suddenly had a lot more vim and vigor, a lot more drive, a lot more desire. I think it did you a world of good. But of course, that leads us to once you returned to the homeland, and what was the next iteration? There's no more time for Rich and Famous.
That's it.
Even though you spoke about it at the time, and I said, no, you're not going to be a sheep. You're not going to do that.
Desperate to do it. Still am.
But then you came to me one day and you said, I've had this idea. Let's give me some feedback. And that was the birth of Sunset Skip. And of course, me and you, we probably talk more about 80s retro wave music than we do wrestling.
Yes.
So of
nowadays,
course, it's that immediately clicked to me, and I was like, do you know what? There's a spot for this, because nobody's doing anything like this, and you've got the personality and the charisma to pull it off.
Absolutely.
You've got to go all in, but I never thought that would be an issue. And I loved the idea from day one. And I think, and I remember when we first started off and you were doing the Fine Sunset Skip, kind of like Where's Wally, but on synthetic drugs. It was, and that was fun. And you got lots of people to do the voiceovers and the appearances on the videos. Yeah. And then we made the Skip Facts map.
That's it. That was fantastic. Even now, people still pop for that. Sugar Dunkerton saw that and was like, "Dude, that is unreal."
The content of that was really funny.
Yeah, it was so good. I've actually started to make a UK 2020-2021 Sunset Skip map. I think I sent you kind of the start point of it, and it is just an arrow pointing to where I live with Sunset Skip stayed home,
Sunset Skip was here
and wore a mask. Like,
exactly.
It's not quite so fantabulous.
But it was a lot of fun kind of in the early days working that character, and then it's gone through a few iterations. And you know, whenever we do shows, and there's always a few people that stand out on the UBW shows, and I try and make everyone stand out, but there's always a few people that people in the audience either connect with or remember. And you can't not remember a 260-pound tassel-wearing, tiger print, loud, neon, retro wave noise.
Yeah.
Hoss, noise. You go Hoss, I go noise. You can't not notice that. And you can back it up. I mean, you can go in there and do a long match. You can do a short match. You can work with somebody half your size. I mean, I still maintain, I think it was 2019 or 2018. I can't remember, too many share shots. But your match with Snare, which was two big lads fighting. And, you know, a lot of guys were like, oh, okay, this will be just your generic big lad bumps into big lad. Yeah, it'll be your Tugboat Earthquake, which, don't get me wrong, Tugboat Earthquake's a fantastic match. But you guys went out there and for 10, 12 minutes had match of the night by any stretch of the imagination. Fantastic, simple, straightforward, but also
good heavyweight,
well structured and clever big Hoss match, and it was fantastic. And your match with CJ was an absolute show stealer as well, because CJ is just that good, so good, like so good to work with.
Curtain back a bit. Like, what was great with the match with CJ, and I'm very, very rare that I will say anything positive about my match. Like the match you mentioned with Snare, the one with CJ, the Crowley match, and maybe 2 or 3 others are the entire like body of work where I've gone, that was all right. You know, all right. I was trying to work this out the other day. I reckon I've probably had somewhere between 500 and 600 matches. So I would say I've probably got less than a dozen that I've gone, that was everything I wanted it to be. Like, I'm very overcritical and hypercritical. Like, I've got beyond the point of thinking, oh, I messed this spot up, missed this spot. But it was more a case of, we could have done this, we could have had this. Like, I'm fortunate enough where I have the skill set, I'd say, to kind of pull an audience in and care pretty quickly into a match. So that's never been something that I've been worried about. But yeah, that was the match with Snare. Going back to that was something where I thought, no, this worked out super well, because it wasn't what people would have expected it to be. It was a match which took kind of quite a bit of thought, and it delivered.
But also, you know, sometimes you just click with somebody, and you two definitely had that clickableness. That's not even a word, but I've invented it and I don't care. But it was great. And, you know, you can have the people that are the standout talents on shows of Crowley, you can CJ. And CJ and stuff, but you need your meat and potatoes. And you can be the kind of guy that can open a show, finish a show. You can do a speciality match. You can do a straight up match. You had the pre-show match with Adonis Payne a couple of shows ago, and it was fantastic, because he's a great young talent in the makings. But at the same time, I make sure I don't roll you out there as, oh, here's this guy that somebody's going to smash through to get themselves famous. No. It gives him credibility, but it keeps you strong as well. And I could plug you into a main event feud tomorrow, and nobody would bat an eyelid.
No, and I think,
and that's the things.
I think where, you know, I'm 18, 19 years in now, you know, pull back the curtain, brother. But I think, like you said, I can be slotted into any position and do it well, because I know what is needed for that spot. Okay, like the opening match with Adonis Payne. Okay, young wrestler, experienced wrestler. Right, I know the story there. What?
And you have a young me.
Young me.
When he just probably self.
We've made that joke so many times. It's great.
But it's the right phone shop. Okay, it is the best TV comedy of all time. The Office is fantastic. I love The Office. It's brilliant. Right? It's a masterpiece. But Phone Shop is the most quotable, memorable piece. The most amazing piece of work ever made. Whether it's whether it's doing an overnight redress and. Yeah, man, gotta get his thing. The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Dead to do an overnight redress.
Hot guys with lazy eyes.
Hot guys with lazy eyes. There's so many things. Rochelle Cosby Briars. You know, there's it's the best show. If you haven't
Raz
seen
Prince
it, you need to
is a
see
bad
it. Man, man, wagga, mama, man. Briars! Polka dots. Anyway, we can't turn this into a phone shot tribute show. We must do an episodes where we will do that.
Watch along.
Best show ever. So yeah, so obviously Skip is where we are now. And I think especially during lockdown, like everyone during lockdown has had, they've gone through the different stages of grief.
You've had banana bread lockdown, tiger bread lockdown, home workout lockdown.
Primark onesie lockdown, but everyone's
formal onesie lockdown.
Everyone's had that point of they're like, oh, you know what, wrestling's done. I'm done with it. I don't want to do it anymore. And everyone's now in the past couple of months gone, no, I've got a reinvigoration now. I'm going to make sure that when I come back, I'm going to be bigger than ever. And I was saying this to Hustle yesterday. You know, on the first show, everyone's going to treat the first show back like WrestleMania, even if there's 4 people there.
That's it.
Everyone's going to go crazy, but everyone's got a renewed vigor and is desperate to get back on shows. And I think the rebirth, if you will, I think it's an opportunity to start fresh with you and to do some new stuff. And I think you've got so much drive and desire now to do that in your last run, if you will. If you will. I think
the Sunset Skip retirement tour in '94.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can really do something with it.
I'm hoping so. Like, I've spent lockdown actually doing a lot of stuff. Like, I've bought a backdrop, I've bought a green screen setup, I've bought a light setup, I've bought a couple of light setups. I've got, like, it sounds silly, a new ring jacket which I'm working and customizing, and I've got new gear design. So there's stuff where I'm like, I'm not just gonna rest on my laurels and be like, oh, you know, it's the Sunset Skip of the first iteration or the last iteration people saw. There's going to be this change, and I want it to be kind of, I've got new stuff to try, and it might not work, and if it works, I'll keep it. If it doesn't, it's going to fall to the wayside, because you've got to adapt or you'll perish. Like, I've got, like you said, I can slot in anywhere on any card on the country, and that probably sounds quite arrogant, but I know that I can have a hard hitting 25-minute match. I know that I can have 6 minutes where I can make somebody look like they are absolutely killing me and look like they are the greatest thing since sliced Jesus. So
you just got to make sure you got your muffler in.
Big Johnny, got
your muffler in. Right, look, we've got to finish up soon. So I'm going to go through the bits that we do at the end of my podcast to get that bit of a personal touch to it.
Absolutely.
First off, I want to know, what is the favorite match you've ever watched and the favorite match you've ever been in?
Favorite match I've ever watched? There's 2, so I don't care about your rules, so I'm going to mention the 2. First one is the one that really kind of cemented me as a fan. Jushin Liger and Brian Pillman, Super Brawl 91 or 92. I can't remember the date off the top of my head.
I wonder what the second one is.
Huh?
I wonder what the second one is. Yeah, but yeah, no, genre defining.
What the second one is. You know what the second one is. Go on. I'll get you to answer it.
I reckon it's a certain Theodore DiBiase
yes,
against a young Michael Jones.
Yes.
Yeah. Go for
Ted DiBiase and Virgil from SummerSlam 91. Now, everyone thinks SummerSlam 91, was it the Match Made in Heaven?
Match Made in Heaven.
And there was
Bret and Perfect.
Bret and Perfect, and there was Hogan and Warrior against Adnan and Sergeant Slaughter and Sheiky Baby.
And also Judo Al Hayes' most infamous interview with Stu Hart of all time. What do you think, Stu? Well, anyway, back to ringside. Yes, so carry on.
But on that stacked card, for me, the match that stood out as a young boy and as a young man now was Teddy DiBiase and Virgil, because it was this culmination of, like, Virgil being browbeaten for ages, and Roddy Piper's commentary was amazing. And Virgil did a flip after winning the match as well, which I love.
I actually used that match in an online training session recently to teach everyone about the psychology of stuff, and everyone afterwards turned around and went, "Oh, that was really good.
Yeah,
that was really good story they told." Yeah, like, people wouldn't think that.
Like, DiBiase is a masterful performer. Like, Virgil, people probably know that Virgil's not the most talented wrestler. He's the person that I remember a few years back, I was in a position to kind of make a few demands in a promotion I was in. And I got told, we can have Bushwhacker Luke for one show. And then after that, who do you want as a tag team partner? It's like fucking Virgil.
Well,
Virgil. And
love
it fell through for various reasons. But it was
probably because of his monetary demands.
Probably. But I remember telling you at the time, and I was like, mate, I might have Virgil as a tag partner. And you're like, oh, that's dreadful.
God, can't imagine.
But yes, so yeah, that match, like Ted DiBiase and Virgil, like if you watch it and if you want to see storytelling, it's there. If you want to see a masterful wrestling performance, Ted DiBiase does it, because like that is the definition of a ring general. Like Ted DiBiase, his timing is unbelievable, his bumping is unbelievable, where he is in the ring, like that is an A+ grade wrestling, pro wrestling performance from Ted DiBiase. You know, it's not the cliched broomstick match, but if you want to see a master at work, Ted DiBiase and Virgil, because Ted DiBiase knows his job in that match is to put Virgil over. Like put him over strong, and he does.
And now you can put yourself over strong. Favorite match you've been in?
Probably the steel cage match I had in 2012. Steel cage match to me is still the ultimate gimmick match. It draws people in not like no else. And again, there was a lot of backstory to it. Myself and Cruz, we had a feud where it started out like this whole feud lasted, I think, about 16, 18 months. And it started out with a mystery guy running in and hitting me with a ring bell and I lose a match. And then he appeared, and then we built this feud. He ended up forming his own version of a little gang, a little posse, where they put those obstacles in front of me. And we had kind of carte blanche to kind of go, hey, this is an idea we want to run with. We want to do this. Can we do that? And we were told, yeah, sure. And we were genuinely drawing people in. We started out with like, maybe, I mean, you were kind of dipping in and out at the time because you were in your kind of like, I think I might be done with wrestling kind of period at that time. But you saw that we went from like maybe 50, 75 people. And then a few months later, we'd have 100. And then a few months later, 110, 120, and then so on and so on. And then by the time the steel cage match rolled around, I think we had over 4 or 5, I think it was about 400 people.
400, I remember, yeah.
Won't exaggerate numbers because, 400 people from 40, we genuinely drew people in like over that time. It wasn't just the steel cage match that drew them in. Before that, we probably had about 200 people in. The steel cage match was certainly a huge kind of drawing factor, but we had built what I think is one of the hardest things to build in British wrestling, and that is a genuine following. So they knew on the third Saturday of every month at this venue, the wrestling's on, and they at this point were like, Rich and Famous is going to get his revenge on Cruz, and I wonder if Cruz is going to be an absolute kind of shitbag again and kind of put this in his way, or what's going to happen. And then finally, the steel cage match happened, and it was everything I would have wanted a steel cage match to be. It was, I think, at the time, it was quite a contemporary match. It was brutal. It had a great story. Like the ending, I remember the promoter at the time saying, like he knew the finish. Like we told him the finish, 35 minutes beforehand. He remembers standing there at the merch table, jumping up and down, watching the finish because he got that into it. And for the promoter of the show to go, okay, I've completely dropped, I know what's happening with this, but I'm so into this match that, the finish.
I'm lost in it.
Yeah, I was, and the audience were, and they were going crazy. I'll put it up on the Sunset Strip pages again. It's on the old Rich and Famous pages, but it's something that I am very proud of. Like, does it hold up to other cage matches people have done in the near 10 years since? Probably not so much, but to me, it holds up so well because it told the story perfectly. And what's quite a funny little footnote in there. Early in the match, we did a suicide superplex just off the top. Neither of us decided we were going to come off the top of the cage because that ring was horrid. But we did a suicide superplex, and it was a heavy bump. And I think Cruz twisted in midair and landed on his ribs and knocked all of the wind out of himself. So whilst we're there selling, he kind of rolls over. It's like, we got to go home, man. We got to go home. I'm hurt. I was like, no, no chance. Like, I said to him, you've got like 3 minutes to get yourself together. Like, not in a man up way, but it's a case of, I'm going to buy you about 3 minutes of time from this next thing I'm doing. And it was the crawl to the cage door, slam the door into my head spot, big bump, sell, juice, whatever. So there was the time for the audience to kind of focus on me doing that, giving him time to do that, and recovered, and we carried on another 15 minutes or so from there. So it was, it was a long match, but I think a steel cage match warrants something that long. So yes, that was my favorite match because it was something that I'd always aspired to do. Like, I've been fortunate enough to do I'd say most major gimmick matches that are available on an independent level. I love ladder matches. I've done, God, I think in that sort of era, I think I did something like 18 ladder matches in a year period, because the company I was wrestling for, they did like show A, show B.
There's a sale on ladders.
Yeah, oh, don't. There was one ladder match where it punctured my calf, but I've still got a nice scar there. But yes, the steel cage match, much like yourself, was the highlight of my career.
It's the way you put a full stop on a story.
Huge full stop.
Okay, and then onto a personal level. Desert Island Discs. So you're older than me, than most people. You don't understand.
I'm not older than you.
No, you're not. You're not that
I'm
old.
like 6 years younger than you.
Yeah, no, I mean you're older than most people, so you'll understand the reference. But yeah, so Desert Island, you get a chance to take with you one album, one movie to watch over and over and over and over again, and one possession. Now I'm going to change the rules on this. It can't be something sentient.
Oh, okay.
People keep picking sentient creatures.
I was going to say,
it's going to be an object.
Okay, right. I've written this down so I can think. Okay, album. I would go with 10 by Pearl Jam.
Oh, good choice.
Because there's not a bad song on there. True. Jeremy is just one of the greatest songs ever.
Yeah.
Even Flow, one of the greatest songs ever. Mm-hmm. Oceans, I mean, top to bottom,
Black,
unbelievable
Porch.
album.
It's
Porch, yeah. Like, why go? Like, there's not a filler on the album. There's not a song which is below a standard.
Yeah,
you know, everything's like Jeremy and Even Flow and Porch and Once are A+, and then there's nothing below. Like Release, like a an album track which is just so good. So yeah, the album 10 by Pearl Jam without any hesitation. Despite me being like the superhero of synthwave and like a lover of Lionel Richie, 10 by Pearl Jam is the album that I would take.
Nice. Movie?
I'm a big movie buff, so this is tough, like nailing it down to one, but it would probably be, and this is kind of on brand, I would go with Gleaming the Cube. With,
I knew you were going to pick Gleaming the Cube. It's your film. It's your one.
It's like, it's unbelievable. It's so good. Like, I think about, well, not many people have seen it. It was a young Christian Slater.
I think you and Christian Slater are the two that have seen it.
Yes, I think I have. Like, and then I've told everyone I know about it, and it's on YouTube as well. So anyone who's watching who wants to watch a good cheesy 80s action movie, Christian Slater, Gleaming the Cube. But yeah, he's a skateboarder who's adopted Vietnamese half brother is found dead in mysterious circumstances. Everyone says it's suicide. Brian, Christian Slater's character, knows otherwise, so he seeks out to get hhis brother's justice, and it's so good. It's got all of like the key skateboarders from the 80s in there, like Tommy Guerrero, Tony Hawk, Rodney Mullen. Like, if I loved skateboarding when I was younger as well, so that kind of was a whole kind of combination of different worlds.
Fantastic. And your item?
I don't know. I'm not. This sounds weird. I'm not a massively material person. If it was a sentient thing, it'd be my son because he's awesome. But I don't know. Probably. I do a bum hose. Right?
Do you mean a bidet?
No. Well, yeah, a shataf, like a bum hose gun.
Hey, look, like, I've got a pressure washer downstairs, so we could try this out one Saturday.
Mate, no. Like, the pressure on the bum hose has got to be very exact. But living in the Middle East, like anyone who's lived in Asia or spent a lot of time in Asia knows that, like, the toilet gun, the bum hose, once you've tried it, is a life changer. So I would say the bum hose would be the object I would take, because, like, why in 2021 are we as humans still thinking that wiping your bum with a bit of dry tissue is sufficient?
I'm with you.
Yeah, like I was a firm advocate for the wet wipe movement a good 10 years ago. I think I converted pretty much everyone I know onto wet wipes. So my new aim is to convert everybody onto the bum hose, because it's cleaner, it's hygienic, you feel fresher. Like,
and if you properly use a bum hose, you don't have a need for a muffler, to Big Johnny.
No, like you can use a little bit of toilet paper to kind of, dab and clean the back wheel. But yeah, like the bum hose has I can't think of a word, but has a wide range of uses. So one of my friends told me about her use of the bum hose for the bum hose deluxe, and I won't go into that story as it's not safe for work, but God. I'm sure you can think of it.
Yeah, I can. It's a little bit of a special tickle. So look, we've finished on an unbelievable high note there. God, that's gone from one extreme to the other. So very quickly, we're going to finish up in the next 2 minutes. You got 2 minute countdown. What's the next steps for Sunset Skip?
World domination.
That's fair.
That's it. No, I want to have, like we've mentioned, that I am more seasoned. I'm a little longer in the tooth than some of the other guys, but I want to have like a last couple of years of really kind of showing everyone just how good I am, what I've got left in the tank. I'm not just there to fill a spot. I'm there to show that I am the potential main guy for wherever I am, and to get anywhere I can do. I want to wrestle for the higher profile promotions. I want to wrestle the higher profile wrestlers, but I also want to bring on young wrestlers best I can, guys coming through the Square One Academy, help coach people there. So there's an awful lot that I've got left to do, both for myself on a selfish sense and on a kind of older guy passing things on. So yeah, it is just kind of pass on what I've got and enjoy doing what I'm doing, and have some meaningful stuff over the next whenever long it'll be once we're back to normal.
I think when shows restart in 2027, we'll have a good run of it. So we'll keep working towards it.
Absolutely.
Well, look, thank you for this. Thank you for spending the time. I thought we were going to do about an hour. We've done just short of 2.
Dude, we could do so much more.
We've scratched the surface.
There's stuff that I've not mentioned. Like, I've not mentioned the offer of a Nigeria tour that I legit got. I sent you a screenshot of it the other day because it popped into my head after seeing something on Twitter. So there's so much more to do in the future.
See, this is good storytelling on your part, because you've left just enough that you've got to have a rematch.
Absolutely,
brother. You've got to have the return.
That's what I do whenever I have a match that I enjoy. And if you've ever seen this, you might notice that Sunset Skip will get the microphone and just kind of drop the breadcrumbs of a challenge, not kind of demand that we're going to be here. But as you and I have had that happen to us so many times, and you go, no chance, not doing that again. But
you can always tell these moments, because you can see me at ringside just looking at the ring, doing the cutthroat gesture, going, stop talking, we've got time.
But I look at you, give you a wink, and I'm like, I'm making money for next time, brother.
No, it's a big investment for when we come back. He's one of those really long canes that I can just pull along and just drag you off the stage with.
The like Mr. T's Hall of Fame promo.
We need our own Big Glenn.
Like Glenn and Feck.
We need our own Big Glenn. I don't know. Maybe we'll put Nick on Kim's shoulders and put a coat around him and be like, go out there and be Big Glenn.
No, come on. I'm sorry. Mr.
Come on, T. Off you go.
Broke my heart. But yes, there's still much more on the table for everyone.
We'll have to book the rematch.
Absolutely, brother. I'll put you over strong.
Yeah. Wow. Someone's got to. Thank you. Thanks, mate, for this time. It's been really good.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, we'll catch up after this. But yeah, to everybody that's enjoyed this, thank you for listening. To everyone that hasn't enjoyed it, listen to it again. I don't care. Enjoy this. Like and subscribe. Follow Sunset Skip. Where can they find you, Sunset Skip, on social media?
On the Twitter machine, on the Instagram application, and on the Thatcher book at Find Sunset Skip. It's I think it's quite an easy way of being able to find Sunset Skip. Just look for the words Find Sunset Skip. There's a Sunset Skip hashtag, which has got all of the tall tales of Sunset Skip, including the time where recently I went to bed before midnight. That's probably the tallest tale ever, considering I used to be able to wrestle on 7 continents in a day. Nowadays, I went to bed before midnight. So
things that lockdown does to us.
It's changed me. It's changed me, brother.
It's ruined you. Thanks, brother. Look, we'll speak after this, but thanks for having time on this.
Cheers, dude.
Bye. Well, that was unbelievable fun, and that was a couple of hours that just shot by. I was laughing so much, I thought I was going to pass out. It was just a real good, fun time to relive some old memories, and to think we've barely even scratched the surface of the last 20 years. There's so many more just insane stories that we can tell. I think we need to kind of maybe vet them first, just for legal reasons. But some of the stuff we've been through over the years is just, oh my God, it's radio gold. So I'm going to finish up. But before I go, first of all, please make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Second of all, Skip, this is for you. I want you to do a special little outro music. And I know how much you love Virgil. But I couldn't quite get what I wanted, so I had to make something. And there's only so much you can do with free tools on the internet and technology. So all I can say really is enjoy. Bye-bye.